Python 3 does not ship by default in some Linux distributions, so we are going to start by installing it. Installing Python can be done easily using the default package manager of your Linux distribution. So let's ensure that we are in the correct path. The Vagrant file is in our path and issue Vagrant up. Okay, now the machine is up and running. Let's get inside it. Vagrant SSH. And if I run sudo yum search Python 3, which is the latest, you're gonna see that I don't have any items or any packages that contain Python 3. But if I install a package that is called epel-release, this is a package that will allow me to use the epel repository with the yum command, which contains some extra packages that don't ship by default with the CentOS installation or Red Hat variants in general. Now I can, let's first search for it. Sudo yum search Python. As you can see, it is querying the epel repository. Okay, and you have several Python 3.4 here packages. You can just use sudo yum-y install Python 34, which is short for Python 3.4. This is not the very latest Python package. The latest one at the time of this recording is 3.6, but the latest version that is supported by the CentOS machine is 3.4. If you are running on an Ubuntu machine, you can just use apt-get install Python like this, and it will get you the latest version, which is 3.6, because at the time of this recording, again, it is supported on Ubuntu version 17.10 or higher. Once you issue that command, you're going to install Python 3 on your system. If you are on a Windows, you can just go to your browser and type download Python to be directed to the Python default page. Just go to Python 3.6.4, which is the latest. And of course, I'm here running a Mac, so it's giving me the binary package for Mac. If you are on Windows, just go on this link if it isn't already open for you, and you can choose the installer, and it's going to install Python on your machine. It's as easy as running the wizard. If you want to use brew on a Mac, for example, you can just use brew install Python 3 like this, and it is going to install the latest Python 3 package for you using brew. It depends on your preference. Python is a portable package, and it is very easy to be installed on multiple machines. Okay, Python 3.6.4 is already installed. So let's get started with how to use Python in your DevOps career. Okay, the first thing we are going to start in Python is variables. I just first want to note that this is not a complete Python course. We're just gonna scratch the surface. Python is a very powerful scripting and programming language, and whole books have been written about this subject. I'm just going to give you the basics of the language so that you can use the different third-party libraries and tools that are written in Python in the DevOps tools that we are going to use later in this course. So let's start our editor. I'm using Visual Studio Code, and I've created this file, Python essentials.py. This is the file that we are going to use to explore the language. So let's get started. Let's just get this out of the way. As you can see, Visual Studio Code gives us a screen that can be split into two parts, the editor part and the command line part, in which you can execute whatever code you write here. So the first thing we need to know about Python is how it uses variables, or how it refers to variables. In the bash shell, variables have been created like this. My name, for example, is Ahmed. Remember, we couldn't use any spaces before or after the variable name. And if we want to refer to a variable name, we have to refer to it like this, echo $my name. In Python, things are different, of course. You are free to use spaces before and after the equal sign, but because this is a string, you have to quote it in single or double quotes. And if you want to print it, you don't use the echo command, use a command that is called print, and you give it the name of the variable just like that. Print my name, without any $sign or any symbols before the variable name, just print my name. If we go here, and type Python 3 Python essentials.py, you're gonna see that I have the variable name printed Ahmed in the command line. If you want to, you can opt to make this file self-executable the same way you did with the bash shell by using the shebang like this. This is not just for bash, this is for any file that you want executable. Any script file that you want it to be self-executable can use this technique. Just we need to know where is the location of our Python package. I think it's in USR local bin Python 3.6. Yes, that is correct. So I'm going to use that path here, /usr /local /bin /python 3.6. Now all what I have to do is just give the execute permission to this file, Python essentials. And now whenever I want to run Python code using Python 6, I'm going just to type / and the file name, and it is going to get self-executed. Okay, so that was about variables in Python. And we have also seen strings, and strings are coded in single or double quotes in Python. Let's play a little with those strings. Let's say, for example, that I want to type the name and convert its case to lower, for example. You can use the lower method. A method, if you don't already know about it, is a function. It can call it a function or a method in Python. It's just a group of code that gets executed in one go. Using the dot here, I am intending to execute the lower function on whatever was in the variable. This variable is a string, and the string is an object that offers a lot of functions or methods, one of which is the lower method like this. Using the lower method against this variable is going to convert its case to lowercase. So if I type Python essentials again, I'm gonna see that I have all the letters in the value of the variable turned to lowercase. And whatever case I use in this variable, it's going to be always converted to lowercase. That is very useful if you want, for example, to have a username that is logging to your application or to your website, and you are running Python and you want to ensure that this username is correct. People often are not obliged to abide to a specific case when they write the usernames. Only passwords are case sensitive, that is by convention. So you might find a user that typed his or her name like this, JDoe, for example. And you could have already a user in your database that is called JDoe like this. By the way, this is a comment. Comments in Python start with a hash sign or a pound sign. So you want to ensure that JDoe does exist in your database. So if you try to equate JDoe in this case with this one, it will fail because Python is a case-sensitive language. So the recommended practice is to convert the case to lowercase and to store all usernames in your database in lowercase. Then it's very easy to test for equality, whether JDoe exists in your database in lowercase or not, and you can authenticate the user. You can also use other popular functions with strings, like for example upper, which is of course the opposite of lower. It's gonna convert the case like this, JDoe. And you can also use the title. Title is going to capitalize the first letter of the value or of the string, so you will have JDoe like this. There are a lot of other functions that can be used with strings in Python. And if you want to concatenate two strings together, let's say f name is John and l name for last name is Doe. If you want to print both of them, you have two options, either to concatenate them using the plus sign like this, f name plus, then an empty space, then plus, then l name. Now let's clear the screen under bottom terminal and run it again. Okay, it's John Doe. This is one option. And the print function or method offers you another way to type or to print several strings together by using the comma. The comma will automatically add a space between the first and the second variable or values. It's gonna just give you the same output, but it will use less typing and it is more readable. So that was all for Python installation, and we had a brief idea about strings and variables. In the coming lecture, we're gonna have a look at one of the very important aspects of Python language, which is the lists. So until then, take care. Alright, welcome back. Lists in Python are arrays in other programming languages. So if you are coming from a programming language like Java or C# or C or C++ or any higher level programming language, you have sure came across the concept of arrays. An array is just a group of values that belong to a single variable. In Python, these are called lists. A list can be created as follows. You give it a name, like for example users, and then you open square brackets and enter values like this: user1, user2, user3. All those belong to one and only one variable, which is users. Now you can reference any item in this list by its index like this: print users, then open a square bracket and give it the index of the item. Lists in Python, as arrays in all other languages, are zero-based indexed. This means that the first item in the list or in the array is having the index of 0, the second item is having the index number of 1, and so on. Now, if I executed this script, you're going to see that I have user1, which is the first user, which is the first item in the list. Okay. However, Python offers you some cool ways to access lists which may not be available in other languages, and that is what makes Python perfect as a scripting language. It offers you quick and dirty tricks that you can use to quickly achieve the task at hand. So let's say, for example, that you want to access the last item in the list. So in another programming language, you will have first to find the length of the array or of the list. This can be easily done in Python by using the len method. The len method, which is short for length, is going to give you the length of the list. So you can just use this with a print command and get the index of the last item in the array like this: users, len users, but then you will have to subtract 1 from the length, because as we have just mentioned, lists in Python are zero-based. This means that to get the last item in the array, you'll have to subtract 1 from the length of the array or list. So the length of users is 1, 2, 3, but the last item in the list is having the index of 2. So you'll have to subtract 1 from the length of the list in order to get the last item. Let's run this code, clear and run the code. Okay, I have user3, but Python has a shorthand for this, like many other shorthands that we are going to see some of them during this class. I can use print users, and then I'm going to give it -1 as the index. -1 is going to, or negative numbers in general, are going to start from the left, from the right of the list all the way to the start. So when I say -1, I'm referring to the last item in the array. If I am referring to -2, it's going to be the item before the last, -3, the one before it, and so on. So this is going to give you the very same output as this long one, this long command. Let's run it. Okay, it's user3, but this is much easier to read, and it is much less code, and it's easier to debug. Okay, let's see now how if we want to catch the one before the last, it's user2, and so on. You get the point. So what if you want to add or remove elements from a list? You can directly change elements in a list by assigning new values to them. So for example, what if I want to assign a new value to the item at index 1, which is the second item in the list? I can easily say users1, which is again the second item in the list, not the first one, and I can say that this user should be named JDo instead of user2. Now I can just use print and give it the whole array, and Python will handle printing the array for me like this. Just gonna give you the whole array, nicely formatted, square brackets, commas, and everything. And as you can see, the second item in the array has been changed to be JDo instead of user2. So that is how you can modify items in the array. How about adding elements or items? You can add an element to the end of the array by using the append method. So I can use users.append and then add whatever username you want, like Peter, for example. Now let's again print the values of the list after we did that change. And now you have user1, JDo, user3, and Peter. Now you have 4 users or 4 items in your list. That is because the append method has appended the item that I have added here, Peter, to the end of the list. You can even start with an empty list and add elements dynamically as they become available. This is very, very common in programming because most of the time you don't have access to that data firsthand. You obtain this data either from a web page, from an API, from a database, or even from the user, and you take this data and start processing it. And to process the data, you will have to add it to some variable, typically a list. So let's say that we have an empty array like this, users. Now I can just use users.append, and I can start adding items to the array, like Ahmad, for example. Now print users is going to give me just one item. I can add more and more users as I want, like for example, John, and so on. So now you have 2 items in the array and so on. This is how you can add items dynamically to an empty array. And again, this is how you will use list. And again, this is how you will use data in your real life programs. Data is not available for you when the program starts. It is the job of the program or the script to grab this data and start processing it. You can also use another important method with lists to add items to the list, which is the insert. And the difference between the insert and the append is that insert will add the item at a specific index. It adds at a specific index. Let's see an example. So now we have users. They contain 2 users. Let's add a third one. So there's Ahmed, there is John, and there is Linda, for example. So now we have 3 users. What if I want to add another user, but I want this user to be in the second place, not the last, the second place? I can easily use users.insert, and insert is going to take 2 arguments. An argument in a function is the data that you pass to the function in order for it to work correctly. So this insert function needs 2 arguments. The first one is the index where you want to insert the item, and the second argument is the item or the value itself. So I can say Mary will be at position 2. Now if I execute this script, I'm going to see that I have Ahmed, John, Mary at position 2. This is not the second position, this is the second index. So it is the third position in the list or in the array. Remember, this is a 0-based index array or list, so 2 means the third position. If you want to add it to the second position, you will have to add 1 instead of 2. Now you have Ahmed, Mary, John, and Linda. So now what if I want to remove users from the list? What if I want to remove items? I can use the pop method for this, users.pop. And if I used pop just like that without any arguments, it is going to remove the last item in the list. So let's execute this, clear the screen and execute the program. Now I have only Ahmed, Mary, John. Linda, which was the last item in the array, has been removed. However, pop has an extra functionality, which is that it will hand you the item or the value that it has removed from the array. So I can say that removed equals users.pop. Then I can add a help message, removed, comma, then the user that I have just removed. Now if I run again the script, you're going to see that I have the array after I have removed the last item, which is Linda, and then the help message is telling me removed Linda. This is what I have removed from the list. Pop is handing it to whatever variable I am assigning it to, which is removed in this case, and I'm printing here removed and the name of the user that has been removed. But pop also can accept an argument. If you give an argument to pop, it will be the index of the user you want to remove. So what if I want to remove the first item in the array or in the list rather than the last? If I add pop 0 like this, if I run the command again, or the script, you're going to see that now I have Mary, John, Linda. Ahmed has been removed. These are the basics for working with Python. You will have to be very comfortable with working with lists because lists are used extensively in Python. So you will have to be very proficient in working with lists. And as you can see, they are very easy to grasp. They are very easy to work with. Python provides many functions and many shorthands by which you can use lists and benefit from what they offer. The last thing we're going to cover in removing items from a list is that how to remove an item by its name. So let's say that I know that I have a user that is called John in my list, but I don't know what is the exact index of this user, but I want to remove it. This can be easily done. Let's just delete this line. And last one. And I can use the remove function. The remove function is not going to take an index. Unlike pop, it's going to take the name of the item itself. So if I want to remove John, it's going to loop through the array. You're going to have a look at loops later in this course. It's going to loop through the array or the list until it finds a user whose name matches the name that you have added here or supplied to the function, and it's going to remove it from the list. Now, if I execute the script again, I'm going to see that I have Ahmed, Mary, and Linda. John has been removed. Okay, so that was all for this lecture. In the coming lecture, we are going to have a look at how to sort lists, and then we're going to move to loops. So until then, take care.